Recording.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Higher Moment Mastermind. I'm Shira Lotzar. Happy
Good
to join
morning.
you today. Good morning, Svetlana. Happy to join you along with Vern Challenger and Alki Thompson, my co-hosts. We are here to answer your job search questions. So this is a mixed group, diverse group of professionals. We are here to support any job search question that you have as best we can answer it. We also like to do some networking here. So because networking we know is kind of the way that most people are getting jobs these days. So stay tuned for that. I'm going to have to drop off myself at around 10 o'clock, which is why I just made Vern the host, and he and Alki will continue on after I pop off. So, all right, all. So, who has got a job search question they would like to pose to the group? Happy to support you.
Well, I'll start. I
Okay,
won't be
great,
shy.
great.
I reached out. I've been to a few other networking groups, and so I know networking is the best way. I reached out to some LinkedIn contacts to get a way in, and I posed it as, "Hi, I'm looking for a job in your company, and I was wondering if you had an internal referral link that I could use to possibly give you credit, and it would help boost, my potential in getting the job." Some people just ignore my message. Um, Others, said there's no openings. Is there another route that's second best after networking?
Well, let's kind of dive into that because Vernelke and I have much to say about that topic. In fact, we could spend the entire conversation around that. It's not about alternatives to networking; it's about how you network.
Okay.
Lots of different ways to do that. So you approached it from one particular angle. There's
Yeah.
lots and lots and lots of angles. It's the idea of like fishing, right? It's what kind of bait do you have? What kind of line? What part of the ocean? How are you casting it, right? It's all of that stuff. And so again, we could spend lots of time here. I'll just throw in one particular one, and Vern and Alki, please, chime on in. So look, part of this, if you think about it, is relationship based. Okay. So all of networking is some version of relationship continuum, from the people who know you, love you, and trust you, all the way down to the people who've never heard of you before. There's like this whole continuum. So when you're reaching
Yeah.
out to the people who don't know you yet, those people may or may not be receptive to
Yeah.
referring you in, understandably, right?
It was like people from high school that,
Okay.
I was
Yeah.
overreaching. I was
Yeah.
really reaching
That
there,
out.
but
It's understandable, and again, nothing wrong with that because you never know. Truly, one of those people could have been like, "Oh my gosh, this is the perfect timing. Here you go. Here's the link." So it's fine. Keep doing that. We're going to give you ands to all of them.
okay.
All right.
Okay.
So first of all, I'm going to jump to the other exchange. My obviously this is for everybody's insight. Okay. The know you, love you, trust you thing is not for nothing. It's huge. It's huge. It is often how people get jobs. Bernalki and I hear this all the time. People who say, "Oh, my former coworker referred me to their new company and brought me in." Happens all
Okay.
the time, right? Why? Because you are a trusted source. In fact, I will
Yeah.
tell you this second how that's happening on my own desk. I might have mentioned this a couple weeks ago, but so I am, I'm a recruiter and I'm a career coach and I do all this stuff, right? So on my recruiting side, I'm doing a search right now. And I was, moseying along, doing my thing. And we had a few candidates who were finalists. And then all of a sudden, the hiring manager texts me one night on a Tuesday night, I think it was. And she says, "Hey," she goes, "one of my old direct reports from like 10 years ago saw this posting, is interested. He's great. Shira, is it too asking me? She's the hiring manager asking me, is it too late to stick him into the process?" And I go, "We'll do it." So 8:30 the next morning, I get on the horn with this guy. I texted him. I'm like, "Hey," I said, "can you talk to me at 10 a.m.?" He goes, "Sure." slid right into the process. We just expedited the whole thing. And now he is like one of the top finalists. In this case, it was the hiring manager who knew him. And because she did, she's the one who could get my attention to make me go, hey, stand up and take notice. Had he been just a random person that nobody knew, I might have just been like, well, it's a little late in the process. Like he would have had to be extra special in his resume for me to have put him in. But because there was a trusted relationship, that's what got my attention. Is this making sense, Svetlana? So,
Yeah.
so likewise, one of the biggest things that we would recommend, if you guys have not done this already, is go to your LinkedIn, go to your connections. So you go hit your My Network tab, hit your connections tab on the left side, scroll all the way down. Now, you might have 100 connections, you might have 1,000 connections, you might have 2,000 connections. I don't know. But it's worth it for you to take the time, slow the roll, look at every single person and evaluate to yourself, how well do I know or knew these people? What's your relationship quotient with them? Even if it's been 25 years. Did you at some point have a trusted relationship? And all the better, did you work with them? That's kind of a main thing. Did you work with them? But even if you didn't, that's all right. But if you did, and they know your work, they trust you, it is worth a reach back. And go, hey, it's been forever. Susie, how's it going? Are you up for a Zoom call? Love to hear how things going. Share developments on my end. Want to catch up with you. You never know. First of all, those people will usually be delighted to hear from you because it's been forever. Truly, it's the blast from the past, what we say, right? Conversation. And you never know. Because remember, this isn't just about you, this is about them too. You never know the need that they have in their life at that moment that you could help them fulfill. It could be anything. I mean, you know how it is. You talk to people and like, oh my gosh, I need a new hairdresser. I need a new something for my kid. I don't know. Right. It's a good excuse to reestablish a relationship that might have gone a little dormant. Okay. It's just a great reason to reach out and do it authentically for the purpose of relationship building, even though, yes, you have a need. They say necessity is the mother of invention. I like to say the necessity is the mother of networking. It's why a lot of us end up reaching out. But truly, once you're on that call, make it authentic, make it genuine, really, really see how you can help that person and support them, as well as what Vern says, teach that networking is about teaching and giving. You're teaching them about yourself, you're giving to them something that they need. I can let Vern talk about that. But that's that end of it. And then think of it just like along the continuum. People who you have different levels of relationship with, people who know your work or know you personally. But then there's another layer of people who do what you do professionally. And Svetlana, that's where the other angle is. It's yes, you could reconnect with your high school buddy, or you could reconnect with your, I don't know, next door neighbor from 5 years ago. That person may or may not have anything to do with you professionally. It's fine
Mhm.
because it'll expand your network, like opportunities you never have heard about, and that's great. And also make sure to connect with the people who do similar work to you because they are more likely to hear about opportunities that are not right for them but could be right for you. And that goes both in your profession and in your industry. So, like, take Helen. Helen's new to our call, but Helen and I both are, along with a couple other folks here, are in the association community. So Helen and I reconnected on LinkedIn. That's why she's here today, right? We reconnected on LinkedIn because we're in the same community. And she just connected with this other little, it's called the coffee chat. It's this little group of association professionals that have been meeting since the beginning of COVID, actually. And they just get together in the morning and like chit chat, whatever. It's a great community of association people who often refer opportunities to each other. She's plugged in there now, right? Does that make sense? In
Oh
fact,
yeah, yeah,
somebody on our call years ago, Kimberly Berry, she was here like 3 or 4 years ago. I don't know, Helen knew this it's a good story. She was on this call. She heard about the coffee chat on this call. She goes to the coffee chat and got a job.
yeah.
Okay.
I was just thinking that in the back of my mind. I mean, my mind always goes to the next step. How can I utilize every bit of information that you're giving me? Um, with, and I was thinking we do have those coffee chats, but I also had different. side gigs that would conflict with that I may not be able to make both sometimes. But aside from that, it's good to remember that I have that option and find some more ways to network. A lot of strangers are more willing to help you than people that you know. It's so weird. I don't know if anyone else
It
has had
depends.
that
It really
experience.
depends. It,
Yeah.
I think it depends. Yeah, Vern?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll say a lot of what Shira just said, but I might say it a little bit differently. So think about the strength of the relationship, because
Yes,
that's what we're
that's right.
talking about.
That's right.
So when you go to LinkedIn and you're just, trying to connect with somebody with LinkedIn at a company, they there's no real relationship there, or
Oh
and so
yeah.
so the strength of that relationship is basically zero. So now that, again, the person may in fact follow up, and it may lead to something, as Shira said, but typically the odds are against you in terms of the strength of the relationship, as opposed to what Shira was saying about um, people that know you, trust you, like you, people that you worked with even 20 years ago, and you had such a positive relationship with them. You can reconnect with them pretty easily, even though you haven't talked to them in 20 years. Okay.
Hmm.
In fact, the reason I'm on this call is exactly that. Shira and I didn't literally talk to one another for 20 years, but we were on a board, a long time ago. And somebody said, Vern, sure, because she needs another, person on the call. And that's how I got connected with her.
From this call. It was
Yes,
this call.
it
Somebody
was
was on
this
this call
call.
and had been coaching with Vern and mentioned this call. And so he called
Yeah.
me one day out of the blue.
So that's where the strength of the relationship is so important. So one of the most difficult things of the job search is if you haven't built a network really, before the job search and you're starting your job search, then it's really even a more difficult search because you don't have the relationship. So now I'm sure all of you have relationships with people that you can reach out to as you're going through the job search now, but think about that going forward. And I'm kind of a walking poster child for what Shira said about, um, the last three jobs in my career. I wasn't looking for a job. Someone in my network came to me and said, "I saw this opportunity, Vernon. I think you'd really be, but might be a great opportunity for you." And it turned out in all three cases it was. So that's the epitome of it. Once you build relationships with people who really know you, get to know you, then that's why we focus on networking so much on this call, because the job search process, as all of you know, is one of the most difficult things you've ever experienced.
Yeah.
And the other thing to remember is, and Shira mentioned this at Contact Sound, we talk about teaching and giving. So you've got to be, while you have a real need and you want all the help you can get, so you're going to teach this person everything about you. You've got to, balance those conversations with how are you? What's going on in your world? What's what are you doing right now? What's the biggest project you're working on? Asking them questions to learn as much as you can about them so that you might be able to give back to them in some way. Um, and again, when you do those types of things, that's what builds the relationship over time.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Alki, any other perspectives from your lens?
I won't add a lot of new. I know I threw in the chat pretty much the idea of staying creative and being fresh in your thinking. If you beat certain doors, try new doors. And I know it was mentioned reaching out to friends and old colleagues versus, strangers. Hey, yeah, sometimes you do need to meet new strangers and meet new people. And, you know, people who fish sometimes they try one spot and then they pick up and pack up their things. Living at the beach some years for me, I saw this all the time. But yeah, you try a certain spot, you pick up all your things, you might move 5 or 6 times to try to see where the fish are biting. So stay fresh, try strangers, try people in different states. They might know people who were, who live where you are locally. So don't be afraid to break things up. Last thing I'll say too is one good question to ask employers if you're reaching out to new people too is, go ahead and let them know if they ever pick up the phone or the email, hey, I know you might not be hiring right now, but when you do hire in such and such department or my area, what do you typically look for? Who do you all typically hire? That's a good way to get an avatar too. And they might reveal some things from the inside about who they typically hire and look for, or they might tell you, oh yeah, we never hire people from that company because that's our competition. So you may learn some things just by asking new questions too.
Yeah, that's insightful.
Yeah. The one other thing that I'll add, and just to give you a specific example, so my career was mostly in human resources and or learning and development. So there's the American Association of Talent Development. That's a group of people. They have chapters all over all over the United States, all over the world. And typically, if you go to a chapter meeting there, you're with other professionals that do the same thing as you, and it's usually a pretty easy way to start to build relationships because you're talking about the work that you've done and it's similar work. And you talk about a project or a successful outcome you've had, and tell me about your experience in designing, learning, and training. Have you learned anything new recently? I mean, there's lots of questions you can ask, and you start to build a relationship. The other one was the Society for Human Resource Management. Again, global organization chapters all over the country. And I know they have, everything, and Cheryl probably knows more about this than I do in DC. There's probably lots of chapters of different groups. And so if there's a group that you belong to, you want to make sure you get to some of those meetings.
Those of us that work in the association space know there's an association for
For
everything.
everything.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Literally everything.
Yeah. Yeah, I worked at the American Chemistry Council, and one of the guys I worked there with, he became the CEO of the Sleep Manufacturers Association. So
There's a wooden pallet association. There's just ridiculous how many associations there are.
crazy.
Yeah, good. All right. Hopefully that was helpful to not just
Yeah.
Svetlana, but everybody here.
Yeah, hopefully everyone. Yep. Thank you.
All right. So other questions on similar, different topics, whatever you'd like
But
to.
I have a similar question. Like, how can I be more successful with in-person networking? Because I've gone to a number of um, like meetups that are in person, and invariably I'm not as prepared to like have the conversation because I'm usually shouting over other people talking, and it's a lot more overwhelming than a Zoom chat for me. But I feel like these face-to-face opportunities could actually be really helpful for me in terms of developing more relationships with more people in my
I
field.
would recommend that as soon as you connect with somebody, hopefully you hear each other a little bit, right? But if you connect with someone, I would make sure that you quickly try to get an offline meeting or another in-person meeting, if you know what I'm saying, right? But not just, hey, let's link in, which you can do that with your phones, okay? But
Mhm.
this works for me all the time. Not kidding you. Literally say, hey, can we pull up calendars right now? Like actually say that. They'll be like, oh, okay. Right? But now don't do that after the first 30 seconds, but after you bonded with them,
Right.
like some kind of like, it makes sense for us to connect. Pull up your calendar, they pull up theirs, pick the date right there. If you don't
Okay.
do that, oftentimes it doesn't happen because everybody out of sight, out of mind. And then we forget about each other and then you go back and forth 5 times. This way, just lock it in, right? That's what I would do. Then you can have a deeper conversation.
Right.
Other thoughts, Alki, Vern?
Well, the other thing about going to a networking event like that, how much um, how much information can you get before the event about, the type, I mean, if it's a field that you're working in and it's going to be other people who are working in the same field, then you've got somewhat of a leg up in the sense that, you can, I mean, think about the questions you can ask. So again, this goes back to teaching and giving. The more questions you ask the other person and the more you learn about them, you might be able to it might be as simple as, geez, I just saw an article that relates to the project you're working on. Would you like me to send it to you? Sure, thank you. Okay, so that's a simple give to the person. Um, so try to be as prepared as possible when you go into those. It's if it's a big networking event, it's always a little chaotic for most people. But
Well, and you know what else? Sorry to interrupt you, but along those lines, even when you're talking to the person, you could open your phone, get on their LinkedIn in front of them. They go, oh, let me just take a quick look at your background, right? And then
Yeah.
maybe there's some sort of connection point that can help
yeah,
you with the
that's right.
conversation.
Yeah,
So I've done some of that, and I think, uh, one example recently that I think really speaks to if we had pulled up our calendars at that moment, probably would have made a better connection because she was a chief operating officer for an association and she was experiencing some challenges. And I started talking to her about those challenges and how she might be able to solve them. And we had this great conversation, but we've never followed up after that. And
Yeah.
so I'm seeing that now as kind of a missed opportunity for that kind of conversation to continue and say, here's how I might be able to help.
Never too
So,
late. Reach out to
well,
her and not just
yeah,
reach out to her on LinkedIn, but you're because you're in the community, you're probably second levels with her. You can reach out to a first level, have them broker an introduction. I'd go after her. Say, hey,
yeah.
we had a great
yeah.
chat.
Now,
Let's
if I can
follow
remember
up.
her name, that's the thing.
Oh, yeah. Do you remember the association's name? Oh,
That's a
Um,
good that's a great lesson though. And I know there's people on this call like Mark who don't typically in his world, he doesn't typically run into like COOs, but the COO, um, I don't know, Shira might say something different, Vern might as well, but the COO, very high percentage is the last check off on offers and also the person too who kind of keeps that 30,000 foot view on the workforce, the staff, where we're moving, what changes, what departments.
true.
They're usually the person to talk to. Yeah, you may have missed this opportunity. You'll get plenty of others, but this, while we're talking about creative new ideas, I mean, we talk a lot about on this call that we're more into sales. And so we kind of think salesy and job seekers kind of think seeky or seeker like. But if you flip that mentality to, what it's like to be in sales, you create a list. And for us on that list are owners, chief operating officers, C-suite, senior vice presidents, because they're the decision makers. And so you all can create those lists too, or in the corporate world or whatever your arena and field is. Who is that comparable person, general manager, managing director, those types who run the operation? They may not even have anything right now, but they're the ones who know in 15 months, 12 months, 9 months, 3 months, something's coming down the pipe. So a lot of times too, it's not, what do you have right now? It's what do you guys have coming down the road?
right.
And that a lot of times they haven't even started recruiting for. I say this as an internal recruiter who meets with these people before the job's ever posted. Shira does it as well. Vern's done it as well. But we know how the planning goes. And if you're already on somebody's mind before it comes, that might be a job that never even gets posted.
That's exactly right.
Well, it was funny because I made this LinkedIn post over the weekend, and that was what Shira reached out to. But I also had outreach from somebody who sits on a board and saying there was an association I sit on the board for. They are looking for this person. And so I had never thought about mining my connections for what they're sitting on as volunteers.
Yeah.
But it's a good job lead. I have now a note from the recruiter involved that they're going to set up something with me next week. So having that board recommendation is also something really cool that kind of happened as a result of a post I made on LinkedIn. So
So Svetlana, there you go. There's yet another way to do this, right? You post and then see who responds because that's another. It's true. People do sit on boards, and boards do have know of people who are on different companies. Like the point is that these networks are very vast. You just got to think in terms of an ecosystem. All the people they've got all the connections in their world. So just be thinking about an abundance, right? It's not just with that person, it's all the people that they know too.
I'm going to sneak in one last tidbit that we just stroked since we're talking about posting. Number one, it takes courage to post. On LinkedIn, the general average is checking the box or the ticker that says open to work, guys. And then what typically is there is, hey, human resources manager, looking for this, looking for that. What I don't see is looking for work, guys. I just created I just migrated our whole internal system. I was the SME for that project, and I also just saved my last employer $35,000 on X, Y, and Z. That's what catches attention to the uppers to say, they did what? That kind of impact? We might want to talk to her. So as opposed, like if you are going to have the courage to do posts, which you should, try different things at all times, post different things, but also add in some of those sales pieces and those stats and those wins and that impact, because you may stand out even more in this crowded market to the people who really matter, because what they're looking at all the time is ROI. If we were to hire you and pay you XYZ dollars, what are we going to get back in return for it? We got 6 other guys who just emailed yesterday saying they can do the exact same thing you said you can do. So what's different about you? So add those differentiators in there and see what happens.
And to springboard off of that, Alki mentioned a very important term, SME, subject matter expert. That is yet another thing that recruiters, employers are looking for, your expertise. Whether it's certain kinds of skills you have, knowledge areas, or here in the DC area, policy areas, what certifications you have. Recruiters do that as a first checkbox. The employer's like, we need somebody who's not just a whatever manager, marketing manager. We need somebody who specialty, 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 specialty. Think about your specialty areas, skills, knowledge, policy, the alphabet soup stuff, right? All of that is very, very important. So make sure when you're posting also, in addition to what Alki said, also include those kinds of keywords, because that's what will catch people's attention.
And again, that's a form of teaching, right? You're trying to teach as many people as you can about who you are, what you do, how well you do it, the accomplishments you've achieved. I mean, that's the name of the game when you're out there searching for a job. The more people that know all of those things about you, the greater likelihood someone might, see a job and get in touch with you, and it's it's a good fit for you. Now you still got to go through that interviewing process and land the job, but you don't get anywhere in the job search unless you get to the interview stage. So,
and we always talk about on this call that employers are risk averse. They just are. It's very expensive to hire people. If you've ever been a hiring manager, if you've ever been, in C-suite, it's not just the salary, it's the benefits, it's the payroll taxes, it's the labor laws, it's hugely risky, not just financially, legally, and the employers take on a lot of burden when they bring on a W-2 employer. Mark knows that, he's an attorney. And I say that because when they are hiring, I'd say at least 85% of the time, maybe 90, they are often looking for people from their sector. And their the subsection sector of the subsector of the subsector, if you know what I mean. Okay. So that's important to keep in mind when you're networking. Not that you shouldn't widen your aperture, not that you shouldn't ask your next door neighbor. Absolutely do all the things. And also go after the people in your subsector, because those are the people who will find you part of the family, right? You're like the long lost first cousin, right? They will feel cozier with you because in their mind, you understand their business challenges. You understand how they do. You understand their alphabet soup. You get it. Helen, we see that in the association community all the time. Ag associations hire from ag associations, chemical manufacturing, right? Like they just do that. Even watch that. Even in for those of you who are not in the association sector, it's not just one community. It's subcommunities. Okay. It's true. Every sector has that. So just be thinking about that as you're networking. Can you go and really go reach out after the people who will look at your background and go, oh, you're the long lost family member we need.
I've also found that that's been the thing that gets in the way of me getting the job is that like I don't have the subsector piece.
Mm.
Like most of mine have been public service and education
Uh,
adjacent associations.
yeah.
So I had a great interview at a healthcare association, but they went with the candidate who had more healthcare
And
associated.
that's my point,
Yeah.
right? I
Yeah.
know it can be a
Reinforcing that.
challenge. It
Yeah.
can be the challenge when you are the second cousin or third cousin, and they want the first cousin or the sibling. It's no, it's true. It's why I say that. Now, hopefully, they have a broader mindset, but the opposite is also true. Go after the associations or go after the organizations that are in the subsector. You're more likely to catch their attention. Erin?
Yeah, hi, good morning, Shira and everybody. I have a question about the career gap, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'm coming up on my 1 year, well, anniversary, I guess, of being unemployed. Um, so I'm wondering, like, how best to present that if I'm asked in an interview. And on my LinkedIn, I have something vague like freelance, professional, something so it doesn't just say career gap. My resume, I don't really have anything. It's just my last job. But yeah, just wondering. I'm also worried that I don't have enough to show for that 1 year. I've done some courses like AI and some things like that. But yeah, I feel
So
like
we're all three of us, me, Bernal, we will all say the same thing. Today is a very different time than it was years ago. So many people have been out a year, 18 months, longer with Doge. And I knew Erin in particular because of your right background. Um, People have a lot of sympathy for now, for what's going on. This isn't just like, oh, you just couldn't find a job. No, like this is a job market that's, and not just because of Doge. The whole country is being disrupted with AI and the tech market. We know like this isn't even like a recession. It's just it's a disruption. So I wouldn't be as worried, right, as maybe we would have been a while back. With that said, yeah, you're right to think about it for sure. And and I would if and on your do the same thing on your resume that you're doing on your LinkedIn. And not for nothing, we would encourage you all to seek out little projects, little freelance things that you can do to, well, A, supplement your income for sure, but supplement your resume and show that you've been doing something. Try, ask the next door neighbor, the people in your world, what kind of projects you can do for them, for all kinds of reasons, but it is a good resume fodder, and then just say, when people say, so what have you been doing? Like, look, we know the job market. I've been looking for niche opportunities as employers are looking for niche candidates and, looking for the right fit, the best fit, not just any fit, because I want to make it a long term career move, not just a stopgap opportunity. So that's the
Yeah.
other thing, because,
yeah.
things can come your way and it might fit, give you a can give you some gas money, but it's not a career move. And you can say that I'm really looking for the right fit, and I'm being discerning in the kinds of opportunities that I vet for myself, as well as, of course, them vetting me. That's how I would handle that. And Vern and Alki, if you have other thoughts.
Well, the other
Gotcha.
thing you might think about is any kind of volunteer opportunities
That's
that
right.
it could be just a volunteer opportunity for anything, but if you can find a volunteer opportunity related to the type of work that you do, and the good thing about volunteer opportunities is the other people that you're working with actually experience your skills,
Yes,
which is a whole lot different than
that's
what
right.
you say on the resume and what you say in an interview, because I
That's
still haven't experienced what you really can do. I'm
right.
banking on what you're telling me in the interview, and I'm going to hire you thinking that you're going to be able to do the job. And we all know sometimes that doesn't work. Volunteering is really a great way to demonstrate your communication skills, your organizational skills, your, get it done skills.
And those people,
Yeah.
those volunteers that you're working alongside, they work sometimes, they're at employers, the board
Yeah.
members are employer, like that's reputational.
Yeah.
I, I,
Yeah.
I wouldn't disagree with anything that has been said there. Helen also added, she added volunteer and professional development. When to their point, right now it's all crazy. I mean, depending on who you interview with, you might could even say it to the right recruiter. I'm one of those who's real enough to talk to, but you could, I could ask you, hey, what have you been doing the last year? Some may say, hey, I get it. It's crazy out there. I get it. Yeah. Most of the candidates we're interviewing have been, looking for the last year, or depending your level or your field, they might even know that, yeah, everybody we're talking to has spent the last year looking or retraining on XYZ software or technology or whatever, because whole industries are changing right now. And so things like retraining, volunteer is a good one. It's not as it's not as loved unless you're in the nonprofit space. It's not as loved as it used to be, but it's still better than nothing. I would say if you can find, and you have to think like an employer, think like a CEO, a COO. If they were to ask you, what have you been doing for the last year? I've been on the couch, catching up on my shows. That versus, well, I've spent the last year exploring consulting opportunities in the industry, talking to CEOs, COOs about what's changing in the industry. What have you been doing? How are you guys hiring new? That kind of conversation is like a meeting. That sounds like a meeting to a potential employer. So use your time wisely, even if you are volunteering or on the couch watching your shows, mix in. It could just be one or two phone calls. Like, yeah, I've been calling, COOs and CEOs talking about, what are the implications for AI in the industry? Or, I've been talking to the big five or the big six or whoever it is. But those types of things to us, when we hear them, that's a lot different than just sitting on the couch or volunteering for my daughter's, softball club. Even though those are great things, if you can label that into a language of how these employers are hiring and thinking right now, that's even sexier on the resume.
Speaking of which,
Thank
Alki,
you.
we haven't
Really
really been
helpful.
talking much about AI, but we need to. Hello, it's here. Everybody's talking about it. In terms of leveling up your skills. So I'm going to put in the chat a little course that I happen to be taking. I'm actually doing it tomorrow. Happens to be on Claude. I know there's a million courses. I'm not trying to like just promote one, but whatever. We all have to help each other. I happen to know this woman, and she's got a couple of, I'm doing a 3 hour course tomorrow. She has this version that's like an hour a day, of an hour over 3 weeks, 3 hours over 3 weeks. It doesn't have to be that course, but I would recommend that you lean in as much as you can to whatever AI course you can do, especially if it relates to your sector. I know, for example, Helen, we've got Sidecar in our world. They've
And
got
I
a
have
sort of
that credential. So
association, right? It's very, very important. Now, we can't ignore it. I know everybody's got a different feeling about it. I'm not here to opine other than to say we can't ignore it. Okay, so do what you can. You don't have to get fully credentialed or anything, but find the courses that you can to just keep leveling up your skills.
Thank you all
Michael,
so much for the really
you're
helpful suggestions and also the reassurance, like it's not the end of the world if I pass the 1 year mark. Like it's not alone. It's a crazy time.
oh, it's so many
I get it.
people.
So thank
And
you.
by the way,
I can breathe again.
especially with people who've been dosed, especially when people in international development, all that, particularly, people understand. All they have to see is aid or international development, like, oh, like they know.
So someone put in the chat. We have multiple people in the chat, but someone in the chat here put 3 years. So
Yeah.
there's people who've been out on this very call
Mhm.
longer. So
Yeah. All it
since
takes is one connection to change that.
I've heard the word freelance and consulting thrown out a bit on this call, and I actually right now have the word consultant in my title. I didn't really, I guess, think through it as well as I thought I had. Apparently that really gets flagged as I was told by one person that they're going to look at that as you having your own company and you're not going to put much effort into hours. Um, is there a reword or is there a perspective that I should be going into this with? Because I do think that it probably is a little bit off-putting. I've spoken to multiple people who looked over my LinkedIn and said, yeah, I wouldn't hire you, actually.
There is a difference between the word consultant and the word freelancer. Consultant typically, to your point, consultant typically indicates you have your own business, you're locked in, you're like, right? me, Alki, Vern, we are consultants. We don't necessarily use that term, but like that is what we do, right? So people are gonna be like, oh, you're not a W-2er. Freelancer is different. Freelance implies not a lot of commitment. It's like, yeah, I'm just freelancing. Yeah, a little thing, a little project. It's like a little plant, you know. It's, you know, the three of us are more like a tree, you know, our roots are in it, but you're like a little sapling, you know, people can pluck you out. So I would definitely recommend, if you're going to say anything, to say freelance something, freelance writer, freelance this, freelance that, or just freelancer, freelance professional. And then have a little description as to, you know, I'm doing projects A, B, C, D, E, but still, you know, pursuing, you know, full-time employment.
This this is I'm happy to we all do this with everybody on this call. We're happy to talk, you know, at least once, sometimes more than that for free after this call. This is one of my pet peeve areas, so I'm happy to chat further about your specific situation. But I was going to say, yeah, it's a bit of a scarlet letter when it shouldn't be. And it's been like that for years. We were talking about networking. I saw an opportunity, a search that I wanted to inquire about, that someone I worked with over 12 years ago, they were at the company and they posted the role, and I reached out and said, you know, hey, I saw that role. You guys need any help with it? Blah, blah, blah. Um, I remember her well, though we didn't work very closely together. She was part of our council. And I remember her mostly because we spent so much time getting the language right on hiring new consultants. And we went through this whole thing. Is it a contractor? Is it a consultant? You know, you can't do this. You can't say that. You can't do this. If we do that, we've got to do insurance, things with insurance over here. So that's another angle too, is that employers, they not only think, yeah, you're not going to be committed, you have your own business. There's also an internal thing for a lot of the people on the operations side, the HR side, the accounting side, council side, for liability purposes and regulations in your state and your area for what you have to do with consultants as well. And I tend to think that it's a bit half and half. Some people think like, he's a consultant, he owns his own business. But I've also seen, because I've tried hard to push a lot of people who consulted for a second to hiring managers, and I'm like, oh no, he's just doing this in the meantime. Yeah, he's just an expert. You know, he's good. He's looking for W-2 work. Okay, now who's the next guy? I don't believe it. I don't trust it. It's a scarlet letter that shouldn't be there. And so, yeah, freelance is one way. What I saw in my time working in-house too, sometimes they look at freelancers and they think like, wait a minute, you mean like a freelance artist, a painter? They're not really serious. They're just freelancing. So there's a lot of good and bad on both sides, not to scare everybody, but it's interesting what their thoughts are and the types of explanation and things you have to show to explain that. I can't think of all the labels here that I want to share with everyone, but I know I'm happy to talk to you or anybody wants to inquire, offline. But Shira probably can talk about that too, and Vern as well probably can talk about that.
Yeah, because this is important because I've been out a year and a half, right? And I don't want that year and a half gap to impact, oh, he hasn't been doing anything for a year and a half. And I was told, hey, go put your own company page up as far as your services goes. So therefore it explains it. But then, you know, what Shira and you all are saying is like, well, how the heck then do we, and I get it, because then when they do a background search, you know, if you get an offer and they do the background search, they're going to see, oh no, there is no LLC associated with it, right?
Look, there's no 100% foolproof way to do any of this. We're just sharing with you on balance. It's less risky to do freelance than consulting. People are people, they're going to think what they're going to think. We can't promise anything, but we would just think on balance. And by the way, it is 10 o'clock. I do need to bounce. However, I'm going to put in the chat. I actually decided these days, I have a full contact info thing, and it's going to have my link to the, like, as Alki mentioned, 30-minute chat. It's got all the whole contact information for this group, for another group that I do. Vern and Alki, please feel free, obviously put your contact info in there. So anyway, I'm just letting y'all know that's what's here. I normally, we do at the end of this call, for those who want to stay on for a prayer call, I normally lead that. I will see if I can bounce back on around 10:20 or so to do that. You may or may not see me, but either which way, wonderful thing, everyone, and look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks. Okay, God bless you.
Okay.
Thanks so much, Shira.
Welcome. Bye.
Take care, Shira.
I was going to add to that since you brought that up that I just watched a news piece the other day where someone was talking about the economy and the economy, and they were which tied into the job market, and they were talking about how during COVID and post COVID, it opened up this whole world of I'm going to get a website, I'm going to create my own thing, and I'm going to make money on my own because a lot of us couldn't work during COVID, so a lot of people became freelancers and influencers and opening up their own shops and consultants and websites. So it is more accepted now, to see people, our grandparents or people's grandparents who have, a www dot, who have a web page because it now is almost like having a social media page. Now it's kind of moving in that direction. However, um, it's also affecting the job market because now with the economy here in this country, anyway, the way that it is, and tariffs and other things, depending on what people did, it's tough now to have your own thing. And so now a lot of those people are now looking for the same jobs that a lot of everybody else has been looking for. So that's another reason why it's crowded in that space. But yeah, that I think we all got used to the social media Facebook page profile thing, and it was kind of acceptable. And even on LinkedIn, there's a lot of people who are like that I've been on LinkedIn for years for recruiting, and it's been an HR professional space, but now there's influencers, and I have 600,000 followers on LinkedIn. And I'm like, wow, this is LinkedIn, and they have 600,000 followers. And so now trying to explain that on a resume it is a bit different, but there's ways to do it so that it's not looked down upon and frowned on as much. But yeah, it's a complicated space. It's just that word consultant, that word is even less harmful than if you were to say, yeah, what have you been doing during your time? I've been doing some consulting. That's a little less threatening than I am a consultant. Um,
Thank you for that clarification. That really helps.
Other questions, comments? Michael, I would just add to what Alki said, and the fact that you're in Boston, and I spent most of my adult life in Boston, so we have a natural connection to begin with. Okay, so
Yeah,
feel free to reach out.
I have a
I
few
will.
questions. Good morning.
Yes,
But
Hader.
yes, sir. I'm sure it need maybe another meetup if we can schedule it for the challenge during the interview. To be honest, and I faced too many even courtesy interviews. So, for example, I have two interviews had been scheduled for 14 days before 14 days. Then within 1.5 days, I get a phone call at 4 o'clock Eastern time. They told me day after tomorrow, you have to be in person in the interview. One of them, I drove 10 hours for the interview. Then after even I finished the interview, even no one bother themselves to say selected, you're not selected, you are still under consideration. And even I didn't follow with them, to be honest. I just sent them email at that time. They say it is supposed to be, you hear from us on the 15th of May. And the second interview before one day, I supposed to be fly to Maui. And I apologize for the flying because even they didn't give me enough time even for booking. And I have to fly from my own pocket. And I have too many scenarios if we can do any consulting on this type of situation, because some of them up in the front you can say it is courtesy interview. So do we have to go for this type of interview or we cancel it? Even sometimes I go just to practice, to be honest. And the second question regarding all of the same subject, if you asking you to come for the interview and there is a pay rate for this interview, minimum, maximum, and you up in the front, ask them, can you just determine what is my value before I came for the interview, because this is different state and I have to handle this expensive. Can we add this type of a question? And if they don't answer it, do we have to take a risk to go even we don't know what would be our pay rate or not?
Hmm.
And the last question is, if you work with someone, he or she they had 6 month experience in the same job position, and you have 2 years experience, and they ask you why we should hire you. Well, I have to answer this question.
Boy, there's a lot there, Hader. I don't know that Elke and I can respond to the specifics of how some company or organization conducts the interview and how well they do it or how poorly they do it. And it does happen. I mean, some organizations just they just don't do a good job of planning and putting together a clear process for any candidate who's going to interview with them for a job. So sometimes, horror stories like you're talking about happen. I don't know that there's much recourse that you have. One thing I would say to you and everyone else, as you get a potential lead or certainly a phone interview or anything like that, I mean, you should be doing your homework to find out as much as you can about that company, that organization. If you can connect with somebody who is working in that organization through your network, or you find somebody who used to work, at that company. But in terms of, and I wasn't quite sure, your last question was about being reimbursed for expenses that came out of your pocket? I don't know. Is Hader still on?
I think it's a good opportunity to just remind everybody, do your due diligence, number one. And then number two, keep in mind that, I mean, there is some fraud, scammers are not as super professional, super communicative, not communicative, employers who communicate well. There's a lot of that out there, the ones who don't always share everything. So ask every question you can, do your homework. And also, yeah, be on the lookout, and also trust your gut and thoughts. If you think something doesn't feel quite right, either ask more questions, do more research, or never hesitate to pass.
Yeah. I can share with you at least one specific instance where what's happening now on LinkedIn is there are actually some companies posting jobs that they're actually not going to hire for. All they're doing is posting the job and collecting resumes for the future, which I think from my professional standpoint in HR is a terrible practice. Because you as the job seeker would actually see the posting, you might apply, you might spend time and effort applying for it, thinking it's a perfect fit for you. And it's basically a dead end because they're not going to go forward with the whole recruiting process anyway. So that is just, to me, it's just terrible that even exists. And you have no way to know that, right? If you see a job posting, you think it's a legitimate job posting. All right, I'll try to. Hader, are you back online?
To your point, actually, I won't speak for Vern and Shira, but I'll say, yeah, feel free to, email us as well, or message us on LinkedIn. Like I had a candidate of mine that I've worked with in the past, and people do this all the time. They're like, hey, Alki, I came across this description. It looks a bit funny. What do you think? And when I have the time, I look at it. I just did this last week for a friend and a candidate that I've worked with in the past. And, it was sketchy in places, but I was able to walk through it and say, hey, I don't know for sure, but here's what grabs my attention. Here's a question that I have. Here's a thing that I saw that, these one or two, three things, or hey, let's go through the description right here when it says X, Y, and Z, and look at the email. It's a Gmail address, and they're a recruiting firm, or they work for the company, but they're using their Gmail. There's different things you can do to detect. But we're here as well if you want to. I know I can speak for myself, Fern might, but don't hesitate to, if you come across a job description you think looks a bit sketchy, happy to answer.
Yep, likewise.
I think that's close to the time.
Yeah.
Well, I
Any
guess the
other?
last thing I'm just kind of throwing out here, in addition to like my industry, I've just been doing some miscellaneous jobs on the side, which I found are, just kind of more pleasurable. I think I just do them because I'd like to see what the different perspective from different people's point of views, but they're not really related to my industry. Are there ways, should I even be fishing or trying to even tie those into my resume? Because I feel like they're so irrelevant. Like I have a resume that's basically geared towards tech, but I've been doing other things like that are more social. Like I actually enjoy door dashing because I find that I get to listen to my audiobooks and I get to interact with people. Same thing today. I'm probably going to go interview for like a barista position. Just it seems really odd, but I actually find I find that it's developing a different part of my character that I didn't bother doing for the past 20 years. So I don't know if it's somehow relevant to somehow make those tie into your resume in the interim, with those gaps. Kind of a long shot here, but I figure I might as well just throw that out there.
Yeah, I'd have to think about it in terms of the resume, but what I would say uh, is that you're demonstrating your willingness, your your ability to try new things, right? You're experiencing different things and you're learning new things in a whole different, setting. And so, part of the interview, if you were an interview, I'm making this up, but well, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Mm,
As you're answering that question, and I'm a lifelong learner. During this job search, which can be very difficult, I've explored other things just to see what it was like and what I could learn doing these other, whether it's a barista or whatever other projects you're involved in. Obviously, if you're a tech person and they're looking for people with these specific tech skills and you have them, that's why they're interviewing you. But it's probably, uh, uh, I just think there's a way you could work that into, I think broadly, when I think about it in the world of tech, we need a new program or we need to develop a new program. I think outside the box, I try different things, and that's helped me in my, in the tech work that I do.
I like that. I
Okay.
just
Now make sure
speaking
it's true. You got to be able to say that, from your heart. I'm just giving you an example, but I think that would work.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense because even as you were saying it, I figured that maybe I won't, it wouldn't make any sense to put it on the resume, but in an actual interview, just saying, hey, listen, this is how I learned because I work in IT management. If I work in an industry where there's a lot of human interaction, managing conflicts, managing, difference of personalities and stuff like that, I could easily put that into an interview, where I could say, hey, this is how I handle this situation even
Yeah.
though it has nothing to do with tech.
I've gotten
And,
a lot
and
better
again,
at communicating with Generation Z as a result of my
Yeah,
retail work.
yeah,
there you
yeah,
go.
yeah,
There you go.
yeah. So yeah,
Okay.
see, yeah.
Okay.
Play.
I Helen put in the chat that she's working at Barnes and Noble in the meantime, which made me think of, and listening to you too made me think about, this isn't a shameless plug, and I wish it was ready. It's almost ready, but I'm writing a book right now, which is pretty much how to deal with all this craziness as a job seeker and survive it and make it and all that kind of stuff. And one of the things that I touch on a little bit is living in the meantime. You have to live in the meantime. The job search can be frustrating and tiring and boring and all of that. And sometimes you try for 9 days and you go hard. But yeah, you need to take a walk. You need to go meet someone new. You need to volunteer. You may take a part-time job and it may open up a whole new world. You may read or do other things, but you need to live in the meantime because yeah, work and bills and all those things have to be taken care of. But life is important as well. In the meantime, it's a good way too to take your mind off of the job search. And not to mention, you could be proactively and purposely learning a new skill, exploring a new tweak or pivot from your career to a different industry, a different space. There's a lot of things that you could do in the meantime. And sometimes it includes, yeah, sitting on the couch, doing nothing, listening to the radio, looking at the clouds, because that stuff is good for you as well. And sometimes job search is noise, noise, noise. And when you get quiet sometimes, not that I'm trying to lead us into a meditation session, but when you get quiet sometimes, that's when some thoughts do sweep by, like, oh yeah, that's right. I met that guy 3 months ago who said, if I ever come across X, Y, and Z, give him a call.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
things to do in the meantime.
And the other thing that could happen in the types of things that you're saying, say, is so you interview for the barista and you start, you become a barista and you're working with other people and yeah, they might be Gen Z and whatever. But obviously at some point you might share, I'm really a tech guy and that type of thing. My brother works for a tech company and they're looking for somebody. I mean, you just never know where the opportunity might come from. So,
Very true.
yeah. Yep. All right. I'm going to
And if you
hold
get that
on.
barista job, let me know. I can share some tips. So
Yeah.
Definitely. And it's
Yeah.
funny because right across the way from where this is, it's a very happening. We were talking about Gen Z, and it's a lot of people there in New York that are kind of fall into that generation, which is what energetically drew me to that area where I'm applying.
Okay.
And I
Okay.
just thought about it. I might actually just go over to Barnes Noble as well and apply there.
New spaces, new
Yeah.
places, new faces,
Yeah,
Yeah.
opens
Yeah.
up new things.
Yeah.
very true.
Yeah. I'm gonna stay on for one more minute, and if Shira doesn't come back, she said she might be able to, she might not be able to. So I'll stay on for another minute or two and feel free to ask more questions and
One,
um,
one other light sprinkle that I think we're all seeing too. This isn't the happiest news, but as a recruiter from my 15 years, and a lot of you all can see trends as well. But as a recruiter, I'm literally watching the job market, recruitment, job boards, and all of that change before my very eyes, and as well as the workplace. And I'll be honest, similar to what I think COVID was practice for a lot of things, but there's some roles and some industries that are never coming back. So we all need to be in pivot mode. I mean, I'm in pivot mode. I mean, fortunately I'm able to branch out, and I'm branching out into different things that I've been wanting to do within my same company umbrella. But I am by no means. I mean, in the last 2 years alone, my space, my work has changed, and the challenges are different. And so I'm having to, I create a pot, and I'm like, all right, that looks good. And they're like, oh, that's old. That's yesterday's news. I got to add a handle. So I go back to the pottery wheel, and I'm adjusting and pivoting for the market and the world as it changes right now. So for some of you, if you haven't already, be prepared that you're. And I also saw a LinkedIn somebody that works on LinkedIn, he did a video saying there are a lot of roles and positions and titles that are going to change, that'll never be the same anymore. You may still be your same person and it may be close to your title, but there a lot of this is twisting and changing a bit that will never be the same. So you need to be doing new things and changing and pivoting too, because your title may change, your skill requirement may change. Those 12 years that you have may not be as valuable anymore. So you may have to go in and update the kitchen and the cabinetry and the bathrooms of your career just to tweak it and to repurpose it. So
yeah.
Do you guys have any kind of, I guess, pointers? I guess I don't even know if I'm looking for words of encouragement or advice here, but since you guys are both consultants, Vern and Akil, I kind of was wondering if moving fully into that space and just kind of like leaving the whole employee space behind? Because I've been thinking about it for a while now, but there's this fear, there's a lot of apprehension. It's the lack of practice, I guess, or there's a lack of I haven't really gone full on in that space, but when you guys jumped into that space and kind of doing your own thing, um, I don't know where if I have a specific question. Do you have any advice for anyone who's considering just jumping full in into that?
Well, I think a lot of that has to do with um, your individual personality, your individual ways you think, the values you have. Um, I mean, the only reason I'm with Contacts Count is because I had a full-time job, but I was working as a consultant for Contacts Count for a long time with the founders of the company. And I retired from my full-time job, and then I had an opportunity to buy Contacts Count. So that's what I'm doing. But I'm not counting on Contacts Count to pay the bills. Okay. I still, I've got a retirement fund that's doing that. So, but that takes a lot of risk away. I mean, what you're talking about, there's a clear amount of risk involved, and how comfortable are you with that? And another thing to do is, you know, I would share what you're sharing with us with people who are close to you and get their feedback. What do you think about this? If I really made this move, could you pay the bills? Would you be happier doing that work long term than, what you're doing now? Um, it's not out of the question. People have done it, but you've got to be the type of individual that's really ready and as prepared as possible to make that leap.
Yeah, and it does feel like a full-on risk, all completely. More risk than anything
Yeah,
else.
yeah. I know I would not do that, but that's me. Um, yeah.
A lot of people are doing it or looking at it. And again, COVID showed a lot of people something that I know. I said as a recruiter for years, there's no such thing as job security. Everybody should kind of know that now. But uh, during COVID, a lot of people learned for the first time, job security. I need to make sure I have either nest egg or other things. And so I put in the chat, we don't have time to get into it too deeply here. Thank you, Michael, for speaking to it too. But one of the things that people are doing before they go full all out, attempting to do their own business, there's fractional work, which is half and half. Some employers will actually hire you for your expertise, but only, 8 hours a week, 10 hours a week, but they may pay you, a pretty hefty amount, but it's not a full-time position. So it's almost like being, like you were talking about earlier, a consultant. So that fractional title is a little bit more accepted than just saying I'm a consultant, which again, email me, anybody who has questions and wants to talk. I know I already put that out there for you. Email me, we can talk about your situation, but also I'm no full-on business consultant, but like Vern, because I've done it and made the jump, I know different things you need to consider and look at. So now I'm actually doing that as part of my career coaching too. I'm coaching a therapist because I got connected with a therapist and counselor network and social worker network with people who are burned out looking to do something different. So I get a lot of their folks to just talk about how to even look at moving into a new career and a new direction. And some of them are looking at doing their own thing. And so Shira also has on her website, she used to do a lot of trainings on, in the meantime of your job search, source out your skills and kind of test the waters here and there just to say like, yeah, let me take some contract work. You don't even have to put it all on your resume, but you can start taking contract work or create a resume just for that, for the people who are looking for consultants. And I know earlier in the chat, I put some of the platforms like Alignable and others that are more solopreneur and business owner friendly. School is another one of those places, SKOOL. But yeah, one of the resumes you should have to test that, a good way to test whether or not you want to do that or not, is low risk to no risk. Create a whole consultant resume and only target those people. Don't send that resume to W-2 hiring employers. Send that to people who literally post on Google, and you can do searches looking for a consultant, looking for contractors, and talk to those people because they get it.
Mm.
Got it.
It is risky to Vern's point, but hey,
Yeah,
sometimes
and
you're
a
better
lot,
off working for yourself.
yeah, and a lot of I'm actually have a lot of connections in the fractional world that Alky's talking about, but a lot of the people that are in the fractional roles have been successful executives, at some level, whether it's in the tech world or whether it's in the HR world or the financial role. So they built a consulting business now as a fractional CFO. So they'll go into an organization that doesn't have enough money to pay a CFO, full-time salary, but they'll go in there and do CFO work, on some 10 hours a week or something like that. So that's something you can explore. And Shira's back.
Back for a few minutes. I'm not sure where you are in your conversation, but whenever
The
you're
word
ready to wrap,
fractional.
you're talking about fractional CO, fractional work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
got
Yeah.
it.
So
You kept going with the self-employment thing, huh?
yeah. Well, Say brought up a completely different topic about, thinking about he's actually during the job search, so he's interviewing for a barista job just to do something, right? To get
Right.
involved in something. And we
Yeah.
talked about how that could be a learning experience. He could actually use that in an interview. Well, what have you done? Well, I've been
Yeah.
out learning new things.
Yeah.
And I have that kind of mind, when I approach my technical work. I think about how can I do this differently? How could I do this better? How could so
One one of the things we don't talk about a lot in this call, but I do in my coaching actually, is what is your why?
mm,
Mhm.
Anybody ever seen the very famous Simon Sinek TED Talk?
Yeah.
For those who have not, go watch it. Apparently, I just found out that it's actually the second most watched TED Talk in the world.
mm,
So Simon Sinek, Sinek, The Power of Why, or he calls it the Golden Circle. And he gave this most compelling talk, which ended up catapulting him into stardom. So much
yeah,
so, by the way, Vern, turns out the SHRM conference, the National SHRM conference that's happening next week, he's one of the keynote
he's a
speakers,
keynote guy.
along with Oprah Winfrey and John C. Maxwell. So like this TED Talk catapulted him.
Yeah,
Really, really important and worth watching over and over. He
yeah,
really talks about the fact that people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it.
Mm.
And he gives multiple examples around Apple, Martin Luther King, the Wright brothers, where the conditions were right for other competitors, like even Microsoft, right, to do well. But why did people rally around the iPhone or rally around Apple rather? Because they described their why first, then they talked about their what. So people would buy the MP3 player and the phone and the this and the that, but they wouldn't do that with Lenovo or Dell or that kind of thing. And he gives all these examples, but it's really about your why. So it's the same thing when you're selling yourself in the interview. What's your why? What drives you? What's your lens? What are the problems you solve? Like what motivates you? Because there's you and seven other candidates all qualified for the work. Why you? The heartfelt response. So really think about what drives you, what motivates you, and you're almost like your own professional mission statement, whether it relates to your profession, whether it relates to the sector that you're serving, right? Just kind of go there and go deep because that can be really helpful in setting you apart.
This is a really good point because I was just having this conversation last night, and I saw quite a few sales jobs pop up in the tech industry, and um, even besides just actual sales jobs, selling ourselves, right? And one of the things that I was bringing up with this person is I said, I feel like I have to be dishonest in the way that I'm approaching this because even though I'm qualified for a lot of things, I don't necessarily how do I put it? I don't necessarily feel passionate about what I'm doing, and I feel like I'm selling something that I'm not really truly, I don't truly fully believe in 100%. It doesn't feel like an extension of me necessarily. Um, Even one of the AI courses that I'm taking, it really tied in social media and selling either your own product, creating your own product, or selling someone else's. And I just thought to myself, but I don't fully believe in this. Why do I have to feel like or create this belief in this product in order to sell this need? Because I guess the whole point is to solve a problem for someone else. But if I believe that we're creating the problem in the first place and then providing a solution, I don't it's a hard one for me sometimes. Like even like working in my industry, a lot of times I believe that the antivirus companies actually create the problem themselves, and then they sell you the solution. It's that kind of vibe that I find in a lot of and maybe I'm just cynical, but
Well,
uh
but that's an important insight that you're sharing, say, because boy, if you don't really love what you do and are really passionate about it, that's where you want to be.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
in terms of your whole job search, that should be like the number one thing where can my skills and my abilities and the way I think about things and the way I approach things, where can I find a job that matches that type of energy, passion, who you are as a person?
Well, by the way, it's interesting because there's different ways that that can show up. So some people here, know that I talk about this idea of lane versus community. I've kind of alluded to it today. You're just to slow it down, I'm going to draw it back to this point. Your lane is what you do, it's your profession. You're an accountant, you're an HR person, you're a customer service rep, you're a marketer, whatever. Your community is your industry mission or sector. Okay, why is that important to this? Because in your case, yes, you were talking about a product, but the product isn't part of a community. It's part of a sector. It's part of a something, right? Which is very different than you being a salesperson. Now, there are some people who are very cross-sectoral, cross-community. Some people don't care. Take HR. HR is an actually very interesting one. Most HR people don't really care about the sector they're serving. They care about the people, the employees, but most of them, they got sectors all over the place. A lot of marketers feel the same way. A lot of people do. And then there's no should here. It's just some people align more with their lane than with their community. So if you have a philosophy, an approach, a lens around your lane, I want to be the best marketer, the best salesperson, the best da 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 da. And here's my approach to that, my philosophy about it. That can really matter. So take HR. So me, Alki, and Vern, we know that profession really well. We know HR people all over the place. And let me tell you, they come in different shapes, sizes, and colors, man. You got your HR people that are people, and you got the ones that are process people, right? Your people like recruiting or training or employee relations and all the things, employee engagement, right? Make everybody happy. The process people, man, they like their compliance, they like their HRIS systems, they like their infrastructure. They're like, right? Two completely different lenses, but it's a lane thing. It's not a community thing. It's just wherever they go, they're going to bring that lens. And so if the employer is looking for that culture builder, employee engagement HR person, different than, oh my gosh, our HR systems are like out of whack. We need someone to build the infrastructure. Get it? Keep us compliant. Does that make sense? Same thing with any profession. There's different lenses that you might bring to your lane, which may have nothing to do with the sector. But again, to Vern's point, right? You got to feel like you're making the kind of impact you're supposed to be making.
Yeah, yes, and that's for everybody on this call. As Shira was talking, I was thinking there are some roles that people post, and they're just like, look, we just got a grant or we just got a new project, and we need a technician tomorrow. They already know that tech with certain level of experience is going to come in, either fix their problem or get the system up and running. That's all they need. Sometimes they don't even need that person to talk. They just need their skill set. Then there are organizations who want the passion, the experience and the familiarity with the community and all of those types of things, which is where fit comes in more than just skill. And lastly, to everybody on the call, at the end of the day, and I'm big on this, but outside of being like a technician or having skills in your field where you're a master and an expert, you definitely should love what you do or where you're headed or where you spend your time, whether it's the lane work stuff or the community. it should be something that you enjoy. That's the ideal. Sometimes we have to do things that we don't fully enjoy, but ultimately you need to be where you need to be, and you need to be doing what you should be doing for yourself, what makes you happy, what makes you fulfilled. And when it comes to the job world, that's what I've been in plenty of these meetings. Shira has as well. Talking to the hiring manager, interviewing is done. We've got 2 candidates, 3 finalists or whatever. And we're like, all right, so which one do you like? And tell us all about it. Tell us why not, and who, and what, and where, and when. A lot of times it comes down to, this is a tough decision, which makes Shira and I happy because we're like, yep, great. We gave you 2 tough choices. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, a lot of times, and sometimes it comes down to affordability or whatever. But when everything is kind of apples and apples, a lot of times it's like, but we're going to go with Marge because she loves this work, and that fits what we do. She just loves it. It's second nature to her. She would probably do this if we didn't pay her. Whereas Bud, on the other hand, and I've literally had them tell me this, like, yeah, he seemed a little bit low energy in my interview. Like when I'm talking to the different people, they're like, yeah, he's great, but yeah, his energy was kind of down. And I was like, that's funny because he told me he's fully excited about this job and his wife would be happy if he got it. But they're like, no, we're going to go with March. And I'm like, okay. So a lot of times that shines through, like your passion for what you do and job interviews and all of that. So do what you love no matter what. And lastly, too, Sai, if you feel like you need to be exploring, like breaking the code or breaking the system, do it. I mean, you're an expert at this point, probably in your field, and you see what they're doing, how the sausage is made. Nobody's telling you that you can't create a whole new version of sausage.
All right.
You solve a problem. We talk about that on this call. Solve problems and give. That's what Vern talks about, teaching and giving. If you're solving problems, there's people out there who want what you have.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Good to see
Yeah.
you all.
Yep.
But I'm gonna go ahead and close out the recording. For those of you who want to stay on the call for a short prayer call, I'll be with you for a little bit here, and I'll look forward to seeing everyone in a couple weeks. And feel free to bring your friends.
Take care. Yep.
Bye.
Guys.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.